Welcome to The Other Side, Mississippi Today's political podcast. I'm Jeff Pender, joined here today with my colleague Taylor Vance. Taylor, hello.
Hey, Jeff.
And we have a special guest today, and kind of on the heels of some big news he just broke. We have former Speaker of the House, Philip Gunn. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, and thanks for having me.
Sure.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Former Speakers of the House, as I said, for 12 years, starting in...
Former cat herder.
Former cat herder, one of the longest tenured cat herders.
Yes,
that's not an easy job to spend 12 years doing, I don't believe. But he did. Prior to that, you were elected to the House, took office in 2004 as a House member.
That's correct.
Serving Central Mississippi, Clinton area.
Clinton, Madison, at that time it was Clinton, Madison,
Right.
Yazoo, and Warren counties.
Oh, wow. Right,
That was a
right.
result of a crazy redistricting map that was drawn in 2000 before
But you
I
had
got
a
there.
smooth, easy race
Oh,
that first
goodness,
time.
that race, as you recall, Jeff, was very contentious, not between me and my opponent, but just because of the mistakes that were made in the election. That was the first election after redistricting, and unfortunately the lines were drawn incorrectly. And
you had to get out and campaign around Christmas time.
it was in October, around Halloween, yeah, which was an unusual time to have to run an election. But there was a mistake, and there were a number of voters who should have been voting in my district who were not allowed to vote in my district because of that mistake. Long story short, we ended up having a contest, went all the way to the Supreme Court. We revoted that one box, and I ended up winning the race and started serving in 2004.
Okay. Well, we kind of buried the lead there because, as I said, you've recently made some news last week with a big announcement that you are going to run for governor in 2027.
Sir. I plan to offer myself as a candidate. I've had quite a few people who have encouraged me to do that, just even going back to that election you mentioned. That time I was asked by the citizens of Clinton and some of the leaders to run simply because we had lost our representation due to redistricting. And in 2012, when Republicans took over, I was approached by a number of my House colleagues and asked to run. And the same thing is happening now. I think a lot of people in this state, they long for leadership. They think we're poised to do good things. They want to see good leadership, and I'm proud that they think that what we did the 12 years I was a speaker pushed Mississippi forward in the right direction, made a lot of advancements that I think are for the betterment of our state. And I might as well just talk about those while we're on the subject, right?
While we're all dressed up.
Let's talk about the education improvements. I mean, we when I became speaker in 2012, the very next year, we passed a package of reforms that assisted our teachers. I think we had to be quick to give the teachers the credit for the
You were
education
coming into this with an education background.
I served on the school board for 11 years.
Right?
Yeah. And so I had some knowledge of how the education system works. My mother was a school teacher. My daddy worked for the Department of Education.
I remember your mother teaching me music when I was
that's
wee
fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. Well, let's hear some of that.
She taught me how to play a recorder.
Oh, okay. Well,
I probably couldn't remember.
She was a voice teacher. She taught people how to sing. So I thought you might have picked some of that up.
I did not.
But we passed a package of reforms that moved our education ranking from 50th to as high as 16th. We gave the largest teacher pay raise in the history of the state. We did a workforce development bill that created the Office of Workforce Development. Accelerate Mississippi is what it's called. That particular workforce bill got a national award. We put career coaches in every junior high and high school around the state to direct kids toward those types of professions. So the advancements that we made in education were historic. Nothing like that had ever been done in Mississippi before. We passed a road and bridge plan in 2018 that devoted a dedicated stream of revenue to our roads and bridges. And before we passed that plan, I think there were over 700 bridges in this state that were weight limited or closed. And today, I think that number's below 100, maybe even below 50. So that has paid off over the last 7 years. Kind of a funny aside there. Had a lot of people calling complaining about bridges being weight limited, and why don't we fix it? And then we closed the bridge to fix it, and they complained that the bridge
About
was
it being
closed.
closed. Sure,
So,
sure.
But we're beginning to see those bridges come back online and be fixed. The income tax, as you know, that's something I really felt strongly about. 2021, we brought forward, I want to say 7 different proposals to get rid of the income tax. That started the discussion. In 22, we were able to pass that income tax plan, which gave the largest income tax cut in the history of the state, and I believe laid the foundation for the plan they passed last year, which was to phase it out. So those are just a handful of things that I believe have made Mississippi better, putting us in the right direction. We have become the envy of the nation on education accomplishments, on the income tax. I think we're the first state to ever vote to get rid of the income tax. There were 8 or 9 that didn't have an income tax. Right. But I think we're the first state to actually have a plan to get rid of it. And then, overturning Roe versus Wade, the bill that overturned Roe versus Wade started in my chamber, started in the House. Very proud of that accomplishment. So those are 3 things right there that I would point to that made Mississippi the envy of the nation. I've had legislative friends of mine from North Carolina and Texas and Kentucky all call me about our education improvements and say, what are y'all doing? We want to know. And Oklahoma, too. I forgot about that. They've all called and said, what are y'all doing? We want to be able to duplicate that. And they would joke and say, we used to say, thank God for Mississippi because we're not the worst in the country. They're saying now we're saying thank God for Mississippi because y'all are leading out on so many different fronts. It's making a difference. So I'd like to think that those are the things that people are pointing to when they say we need leadership. I've got a track record that I can point to show that we can get things done. And one of you mentioned herding cats a minute ago. I guess it's instructive for people to understand exactly how those things happen. Nobody just declares that we're going to move our education forward or we're going to get rid of the income tax or we're going to do any of those things. You have to put together the votes. You have to work in the House. We have 122 members. Half of that is 61. A majority is 62. And if it's an income tax bill or a tax bill of any sort, you have to get a 3/5 vote, which is 74. So somebody's got to sit down with the members. They do not have to follow the speaker. They do not have to follow the lieutenant governor. They are independently elected by their people, but you got to have the ability to persuade them and say, here's an idea that I think is good. I need for you to be with me on this. And you got to convince them and cajole them and answer their questions. And you got to do that 74 times if it's an income tax bill. That takes gaining their trust. It takes knowing how the process works. It takes understanding their personalities and what is important to them, and being able to move legislation forward. And I would point to that as a skill I was able to develop over the 12 years of being Speaker.
Then you have to deal with the Senate.
Well, then you got to go down the hall and do it all over again.
Now
you got to convince the lieutenant governor and,
that art
and 26 senators.
That art may have been lost, I think, since 2024.
But I think it's helpful for people to understand that process, that these things happen because somebody was able to sit down and have those conversations. And it's one of the ways that I plan to distinguish myself from anybody else who runs. Right now, I know there's only one other person in the race, but
one of your former
and they're
top
all,
House members.
They're all fine people. But we're talking about the ability to be able to move legislation, and none of the rest of the names that I've heard have any experience doing that. None of them have been in the game, on the field, making those kind of things happen. So that would be the difference I would point to between me and anybody else.
So what are some of the pieces of legislation, or what are some of the policies that you are promoting or plan to highlight on the campaign trail? I've heard a few of them.
Well, good. I think you were at my announcement last week, and I talked a little bit about that. I talked about the fact that over the 12 years I was the Speaker, I was able to travel the state extensively, which was a great privilege and honor. Had conversations with people from every corner of this state, and one theme emerged, and that is they want to see their children stay in Mississippi. I think I referenced a dinner I had a couple of weeks ago in North Mississippi with 12 community leaders, all of whom were 40 to 45 years of age. They got kids at home. They're trying to raise them up. And they all said, I said, what is y'all's vision for the state? And immediately, right out of the gate, one of them said, I want Mississippi to be the place where my kids want to stay when they grow up and raise their families. So then we talked about, what does that look like? What are the things that are necessary to make that happen? And I put it into two different columns or categories just for simplicity's sake. But economic prosperity is where it starts. And with that, there's a number of things that I think are necessary to make us economically prosperous. It starts with taxes. We talked about that a minute ago. If the young people know that there's not an income tax in this state, that's an incentive to stay here. They don't have to go somewhere else, and they know they can keep all their hard-earned money. Property taxes is a big one. I think that's not just the young people, but everybody wants to see some relief on property taxes. Our elderly particularly want that. The cost of groceries, I referenced that. You know, I've long believed I would like to be able to find another way to fund our cities other than through grocery taxes. So the tax structure is one of those things. High-paying jobs is another one. We still have the lowest median income level in the country. Now, we do have a low cost of living, but we need high-paying jobs. We don't just need jobs, we need high-paying jobs. I have talked with a number of business leaders who I plan to pull to the table, and we're going to talk about how do we get these high-paying jobs in Mississippi. Part of that is education. We've got to maintain the improvements we've had in education, but we also got to prepare our children for the jobs of the future. And three hot sectors, I think, are energy, technology, artificial intelligence. We got to be able to prepare our kids for the jobs of the future. Safe communities is part of that. Good schools is part of that. All of those things, good health care. All of those things are things that need to be addressed so that we can experience that economic prosperity that I'm trying to achieve. The other category was social stability, or maintaining the social environment that we have. We have values in Mississippi that are strong family values, strong religious values. I want to see those protected and maintained. We didn't talk about that, but we did a lot of things when I was in the legislature to protect religious freedom. I can think of two bills we passed to do that. We kept boys out of girls' sports. We protected the family unit. We protected the sanctity of marriage, protected the lives of the unborn. Those are all things that are important, I believe, to our children who have been raised here. And we want to make sure we maintain those and still make advancements in every one of those categories. The culture in this country continues to try to attack the family unit, attack our children. We need to be, I think these young people who want to stay in this state want to make sure that their children are protected from those attacks on our culture. That's a quick overview.
One of those sectors you just mentioned, healthcare. That's, everyone knows we have huge issues there. Recent report, again, highlighting the precarious situation our rural hospitals are facing, and rural health care is a huge issue still. What are some ideas or some things you think you'll promote on that front?
Well, I think it requires, first of all, getting all the players to the table. And what we have seen in the healthcare arena, and the healthcare professionals have not really denied this, is a decline in population. In some of the areas of our state, the population has just declined. And I don't care what business you're in, if you don't have a population base to support it, it's just hard to maintain it, whether you're in a restaurant business or a car dealer or whatever. And so many of these rural hospitals just don't have a population base anymore to support what they're trying to do. And that's just not my opinion. Just look at the doctors. The doctors are graduating med school, and where are they going? I don't see many of them going into the rural areas of this state. Now, we did something when I was in the legislature called the Rural Physicians Scholarship, which encourages those physicians to go into the rural areas. It was a way we attempted to get them to go. And I think the deal was if you go and you serve 5 years, then your medical bills are your medical school bills are taken care of. That was a way to incentivize provision of health care in those areas. But I think there's just going to have to be a partnership. I think in many of these areas you want to have health care. You want to be able to have quality health care. But they're going to have to find support of some sort to maintain those facilities because the population base just doesn't seem to support everything they're trying to do. That doesn't mean they can't still provide some things, but that's just one thing that's got to be looked at.
Along those same lines, you mentioned rural areas or loss of population and some of those issues. We've seen before, sometimes even when other parts of the state are doing well or prospering, we've still got a couple areas, the Delta, Southwest Mississippi, that sometimes appear to be kind of left behind in any forward momentum there. How do you address that? Again, another rural state issue.
Yes. Those are difficult questions. I've been in the legislature for 20 years, and every year the Delta has been discussed as how do we help. I think some of these things that I've mentioned are starting points for that. You've got to have. Let me give this an example. Many years ago, I guess when Continental Tire came to Clinton, they flew the CEO from Germany over here, and my job that day was to sell him on Clinton, Mississippi. And they put me in a van with him, and I showed him our schools, and I showed him Mississippi College, and he talked about our crime rate, and he wanted to know what our neighborhoods were like. Had nothing to do with the operation of Continental Tire. They'd already decided Continental Tire can work in Clinton, Mississippi. We had the infrastructure, we had the workforce. What he wanted to know was what's the community like? If I move my company here, where are my people going to live? Where are my kids going to go to school? What's your crime rate? And it just made an impact on me to know that that's some of the things that companies look for. So if we're looking to attract an industry to Mississippi, to an area, whatever area you want to name, you got to have good answers to those questions. We do have good schools. We do have a low crime rate. We do have a quality workforce. And so that, I think, is the answer to the Delta and to Southwest Mississippi and any other rural area. We got to have good answers to those questions. We got to have good quality schools, safe communities, an educated workforce, and those are the things that are going to be the answer to attracting jobs and industry to these areas that are rural.
One thing you I think mentioned in your campaign announcement video, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to mischaracterize it, but it said essentially you're proposing that data centers pay their fair share, something along those lines. Can you explain a little bit about what you mean by that and how you can do that while kind of balancing economic development?
There's been some concern expressed by citizens that I've heard that some of the costs of those centers would be passed along to the customer. As I understand it, the deal that was struck with Amazon assured that would not happen. And that's what I mean. Any other future data center that comes online, we just need to make sure that same model is duplicated. We don't want a situation where the data center, the cost of running it, is passed along to our citizens who then have to foot the bill for that. We just
and things like energy, electricity,
right, or natural gas, either one. And so I don't know that there's a law that mandates that or that the MDA mandates that. But whatever deals are struck moving forward, we just need to make sure that when a data center comes, we're not passing the cost along to our citizens.
Are you expecting this? As you mentioned, you've only got one announced opponent now, but you think this will probably be a pretty crowded race?
Don't really know.
Open seat?
Don't really know. I know there's a lot of chatter about different ones that are thinking about it. I don't think it's going to be a lot of people at the end of the day. I think there are a lot of people looking at it, but I'm hoping that people will look at our record, look at our accomplishments, and realize we have a track record of getting things done. I like to use this analogy. When when Mississippi State and Ole Miss won a national baseball championship, it made us all proud. All Mississippians were proud of that. I was proud of that. And I went around saying, we won a national championship. We won a national championship.
You were a little prouder with Ole Miss, though, weren't you?
I was proud of both. I was proud of both. And I think every Mississippian ought to be proud when their people, when our home team does well. Well, one old boy looked at me, he said, well, how many balls did you hit? How many outs did you make? I said, well, I wasn't on the field. He said, so we didn't do nothing, did we? You sat up in the bleachers and watched the boys on the field get it done. I thought, well, yeah, that's right. So I lay that over to this governor's race. You look at this is the way I would distinguish myself. All these things that we talked about that have happened during the 12 years I was a speaker, I was on the field with my colleagues, with my legislators, getting them done. And everybody else is talking about it was up in the bleachers watching us do it. And I think that's a great distinction. When you're looking for that next leader of our state, you want the person who has a track record of getting things done. And I think I can point to that and be proud of moving Mississippi forward in the right direction.
Well, you are campaigning for an office that is sort of constitutionally weak a little bit. And I think you sort of reminded a lot of people that when you were speaker. You
reminded a governor or two of that, didn't you, perhaps?
Well, I think our system is set up that way. It's designed for the people to have a voice through the legislature. I think they wanted the legislature to be the place where policy is shaped and the people's voice is heard. The founders of our nation, the founders of our state, did not want a strong central figure. That does not mean it's not important. The governor of this state is the face of the state. He shepherds the policy. He helps shape the policy. And I think working together with the lieutenant governor and the speaker, we can do great things. I don't know who the next lieutenant governor is going to be, but of the names I've heard mentioned, I have a good relationship with all of them. I believe I can work very well with all of them. Obviously, Jason White is the speaker now, and he was my right-hand man, and I have a great relationship with Jason, and he and I know how to work together well. I just think it would be a refreshing team to have together. I think I can work well with the lieutenant governor, whoever the next one is, and Jason, and we can do a lot of things to move Mississippi forward.
On that note,
thank
we
you
really
for your
appreciate
opportunity.
you. Appreciate you coming in and,
Yes,
and
sir.
plan to have you back. We should note that unlike your announced opponent, you don't have an album
Not yet.
that you could sing a snippet from yet.
I did say my mother was a voice teacher, but she didn't teach me much.
It didn't
So
take.
didn't stick.
I was too interested in playing ball. I just didn't have time for that.
I know.
But let
I
me-
thought you would bring a baseball bat out sometimes. Didn't you?
I had a bat. Yeah,
I was always
actually,
scared you were going to kind of use it on us occasionally.
Well, I was tempted to. Don't. I had a client one time that was a baseball player, and I negotiated his contract for him. He was a pitcher, so in the American League, the pitchers didn't bat, but they gave him a bat anyway. So he gave that to. That was my compensation for negotiating his contract. Was a baseball bat.
It's a pretty good,
yeah,
pretty good gift.
I guess so. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Speaker.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir.